the change you propose, does that have any constitutional implications that could be possible stumbling blocks? Has that been looked at?
The changes, that's where the experts come in. In my opinion, we would have to make some amendment to the Constitution, but there are those who are saying you do not necessarily have to do so, but that is where we would get the advice from the experts. Personally, I believe that even if we have to make changes to the Constitution, that it is something that would be of such paramount importance that within the kingdom, support should be given to St. Martin in order to realize this change before the next election. That is why in the initial proposal for the national decree, I had suggested that the government should be given the opportunity to make the necessary changes, and once those changes are made, that we would then, 3 months after, hold the elections. So if they were finished in 6 months, then 3 months after. If they were finished in 9 months, 3 months after. And if they took a year, then 3 months after that year, we would have the elections. It resulted, however, in what we have before us, that the election is now slated for September 26th. And from my end, as Prime Minister with responsibility for the electoral reform, I will ensure that the ball is rolling as fast as possible, and we hope to get the support from everyone, Parliament, the Council of Advice, and the Kingdom Government, if need be, in order to bring about this change before the election.
Is there already a first draft of the law that will regulate these changes?
No, there is no draft. What I have done was given the notes / the instructions to the committee. One of the members, is on vacation until the first week of January, but from the first week of January, the committee will get rolling on this. How soon they will finish a draft. The thing is, this is not the only thing that needs to be worked on. As you know, in 2013, I think there was a motion that had called for the regulation of events on election day and 2 days prior to it, which were not carried out in 2014 because the UP party complained that some of these things, they could not prepare for them and whatnot. Some of the issues that the coalition is also looking at is on election day itself, that we have no persons gathered at the polling stations, to use the word harassing voters. Every political party has engaged in it because you don't want one to have the advantage over you. But if we look at the Constitution where we say people should have free and fair elections, the elections are not free if you are bombarded by supporters of political parties, from the leaders right up and right down, pushing pamphlets and stickers and all kinds of things in your face, asking you to vote for them. You show up at the polling station and you see sometimes billboards as large as a container, basically telling the voters this is who you should vote for. And it is not in the direction of any one political party or individual, because all of us engage in it when it becomes necessary. So we want to remove all political paraphernalia 48 hours before the election. In this case, elections would be on a Monday, 48 hours before the Monday. So from the Saturday, the island will be free of any political material, no posters, no stickers, no banners, no flags, and people coming to the polling stations cannot wear any political propaganda. So you can wear your green shirt if you have one, your red shirt or your white shirt, your blue shirt or your purple shirt. Big D is indicating that you can wear your green tie, but you cannot wear any political propaganda. So the green tie cannot say vote DP, or the red tie cannot say vote UP.
Okay.
It would have to be just a tie and that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hart, for your questions. Alita, good morning. You have the floor.
Good morning, Cedric. Thank you. Good morning, Prime Minister, Minister Lee. Prime Minister, you mentioned the action plan that the Coalition of Eight is working on. I'm certain by now you have top priorities in that. Can you at least give us an insight on what are maybe 2 or 3 of those top priorities?
Well, I will give you insight in just one top priority, and that is the government building.
Okay.
Across the board, all members see that as a top priority. Besides electoral reform and changes, the government building is a top priority. We have been having extensive conversations that were spearheaded by our Minister of Finance to ensure that because it's a combination of solving the debt that we have to the APS and to the SZV, and of course, the realization of the completion of the building and the moving into the building. So far, we believe that we will be able to move into the building sometime in June, July of next year. But important in this entire exercise was also finding a formula to pay the debt that the government owes to SZV and the pension fund. Of course, one of the priorities, which was also one of the instructions given by the governor, was to ensure that we have a balanced budget for 2016. Yesterday, the Council of Ministers met in an extraordinary session, and we approved the initial draft of Budget 2016 to get that moving in the advisory trajectory with the Council of Advice, etc. We have a target date of January 31st, and we are pretty sure that we will be finished with that around that date as well. So it might be January 29th, 30th, or 31st, but it may run over to February 1, 2, 3, or 4. As indicated earlier, I have to leave to attend the funeral of Jose Marlin. So any other questions, hold them for another day or another hour.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister, for updating us on matters related to your respective ministry. And of course, at this time, I'd like to invite the Minister responsible for Healthcare, Social Development, and Labor, the Honorable Emma Lee, to address you.
Morning, Cedric. Thank you. Welcome to the media, television viewers, and radio listeners. I've been in office roughly a month and a half, and I want to announce that we have finalized the selection of the cabinet members for the Ministry of VSA. We received well over 100 applications from all around the community. I think it's a clear validation that the process, the open process of selecting the cabinet members was the correct process and a robust process. I think in the end, we looked for a number of factors. Obviously, educational background, experience, but in the end, you know, we're very much looking to build a team. So how the staff members interact with each other, how their skills and knowledge complement each other was obviously a critical factor. So there are obviously many candidates who applied and who had terrific references and terrific resumes. But in the end, when we looked to put together a team, there were factors beyond just what their capacities were. So some of the team members that we've chosen, some are on vacation, so otherwise I would bring them in here to let you meet them personally. But Dr. Cornelius Baumann, he's a senior specialist. He's actually a medical doctor by profession, has a master's degree in business administration, and has worked as an occupational physician at Shell in the Netherlands. In his many years of experience, he's helped to bring down healthcare costs for large multinational companies. And I think that in the efforts that VSA is going through in terms of healthcare reform and helping to bring healthcare costs into control, I think he's an excellent member of the team. Miss Ellen Knopfel, she's a legal advisor. She's a lawyer by profession, master's in law. She worked at the Cabinet of Justice as a legal specialist for 3 years. This is a great story, actually. As a result of our newspaper article and of our advertisement, she was one of the first applicants. She saw the ad by noon. She'd sent her resume by 1 o'clock. By 3 o'clock, she was in my office for an interview, and by the next morning, we had an in-principle agreement to hire her. And this is a person that, you know, I would never have sort of bumped into, not really in the circle in which that I move, and so this is a direct result of our advertising campaign. Miss Elisa Rios, she's an expectant mother. She's expected to be due sometime in the spring. Master's in Public Administration, specializing in public policy, lobbying, and media, and she's worked in the Cabinet of Education as a policy advisor. Mr. Selby Phillip, policy advisor. He has a master's in Public Administration. He's worked 4 years in the Department of Labor as a policy advisor. And Ms. Samira George, our executive secretary / PR. She has 2 associate degrees in business management and business information system. And she comes from the staff bureau of the Ministry of VSA, where she worked as secretary to the SG for the past 4 years. So she brings good perspectives of the ministry itself. In addition to the paid members of the cabinet, I also have 2 other members who basically volunteer their time. And that's Mr. Roy Marlin. He obviously is a member of the Democratic Party family. And on behalf of the Democratic Party, I'd like to extend our condolences to the Marlin family. As a matter of fact, I saw his brother just a couple days before he passed away, and he looked in tremendous health, so really quite a shock to us. But he's volunteering his time. He comes in on an occasional basis, obviously these days less. But he brings with him experience as a civil servant, as a commissioner, island council member, and a member of parliament. I think that his knowledge and experience of how government functions has been an invaluable resource to me. And Mr. Jim Rosen, he's working for a symbolic gilder. He's here in the office in the administration building, I would say almost on a full-time basis. But these are 2 individuals that are so committed to the vision that we've laid out of open government and who believe in the plan that we've laid out for the Ministry of VSA, that they've volunteered their expertise, their time, to the interest of the country. So I'm proud of the team we've put together. I have also sent a photo, by the way, of the team together to the media. Second point I wanted to bring up, in the process of being more open, openness in terms of access to information is a critical part of that process. So the Ministry of VSA, we've begun the process of trying to open up the budget for public scrutiny. And so we're beginning the process of trying to bring our budgets to actual. Our target is to do this on a quarterly basis, but we've started with some basic information for the public. Bottom line, although we have the actuals only up till November, they still have a couple more months of expenditures that will come in. But in general, what we're seeing is that the Ministry of VSA has done a good job in terms of being fiscally responsible. And obviously, being here a month and a half, I really can't take any credit for that. It really is our acting SG, Joy Arnell, and our financial controller, Roxanne Hall, and obviously the rest of the civil servants within the ministry who have operated in a fiscally responsible manner. Our budget for 2015 was about 56.7 million guilders, of which actually what was spent was about 54.9 million guilders. Bearing in mind that actually the largest portion of our budget is actually Social Security expenditures of about 20 million guilders. That's about 47% of the budget, and that includes medical aid, government contributions to SZV for non-active employees and their family members, financial aid, burial costs, crisis care, and there were some payments to White and Yellow Cross. But one of the things that really skews our budget, and I think one of the points that we need to address going forward, is that within the ministry's budget, we are responsible for all of the health care costs for the civil servants. And that was actually budgeted at 13.7 million guilders, and in actuality will come in at about 18 million guilders, so well over budget. So this is a reflection that either we've under budgeted the health care costs, and it raises a question as to whether we're doing enough from a preventative services side in terms of keeping and managing our health care costs. But this is something that going forward in the new year, we're certainly going to need to address. So in our graph, what we've provided to the media, we've actually pulled out that section because that's a section that we really have very little control over, and I think it sort of skews the perception of the budget. So when the media gets it, you'll see that we've pulled that number out so that it gives a better reflection on the actual performance of the ministry. There's a number of concerns that we've seen within the budget, but those are topics that we'll bring up in our action plan, which we will release in the beginning of January.
Hope everyone had a joyful Christmas. Just a couple remarks. A few weeks ago, mention was made of reviewing all decisions made by the previous government between September 30th and November 18th. One such decision was the land swap agreement with Port Pleasant. In this agreement, Port Pleasant will transfer a parcel of land in Cold Bay to the government of St. Martin, and the government would issue in long lease a parcel of land at Kimshaw Beach in Simpson Bay. After carefully reviewing that agreement, I have decided that agreement is not in the best interest of the country, and I have informed the party in question by letter of my decision. One of the major issues with the agreement is that the Kimshaw property that is owned by government has a subdivision plan and is zoned for the purpose of creating public parking. That is law, that is established. The agreement indicated that the parcel of land will be given to develop a resort in that area. So the agreement states that we would give the property to a company owned by Port Pleasant, and they are allowed to build a resort, and law states that property is only to be used as public parking. The agreement indicated that the parcel, as I said, is given for the development of a resort. So the subdivision for that parcel, which is law, and the agreement contradicts each other. To change the land purpose, that can only be done by the establishment of zoning plans. Zoning plans are in preparation, and a draft zoning plan for the area in question is reserved for parking as well. The only way that we can change the purpose of the property is through zoning plans, and zoning plans are established by the Parliament of St. Martin. So by giving the land and agreeing to the development of a resort, you're putting government in a bind, because the situation could arise where Parliament could agree with the draft zoning and establish that the property can only be used for parking, and then government would have an issue where an agreement is given to a party that they are allowed to build a resort, and the law states that the property can only be used for parking. So with that in mind, and seeing the need for public parking in that area, I have made a decision to revoke the previous agreement, and I have informed the party of such. A second topic, I've been hearing rumors of the creation of a parking on the Great Bay Beach, adjacent, close to the Walter Plants Square. Somehow, the impression is given that VROMI is or has granted permission to the Harbor Group of Companies to build a parking lot on the beach at Great Bay. Based on the information I received, a meeting was held with the Harbor Group of Companies and the Ministry of VROMI in April of this year. The meeting was to discuss the plans of the harbor for the Great Bay area. In that meeting, different ideas was brought forward, and after the meeting, a letter was sent in July from the ministry to the harbor requesting a follow-up on the meeting to discuss areas of cooperation between the harbor and the ministry. One such area is parking in the Phillipsburg area, as that can be annoyance for visitors and locals as well. Since our email to the Harbor Group of Companies in April, and we have not received a response as yet, I want to make clear, because I saw an article in the Daily Herald yesterday, and there was I believe on page 5, an artist rendition, an artist impression of the future plans, and there was an area reserved for temporary parking on the beach. I have not seen an advice. I have informed by the SG of the ministry. There is no request in for the creation of a parking in that area. So permission was not granted. There is no request submitted. We have clear policies in place, the beach policy, that prohibits any kind of development on the public beaches. So I want to make clear that if a request is submitted to the ministry, that request will be evaluated based on the current policies that we have in place. An advice will be sent to my person, and a decision will be made. But it will be based on, not hearsay, but based on the policies that government has in place. So I want to put that rumor to rest. No request has been submitted. No permission has been granted to establish a parking lot on the beach in Great Bay. And once again, I have informed, and I probably could know a little bit where those rumors are coming from, but I want everyone to be reassured that once a request has been submitted, it will be evaluated based on the policies we have in place, and a decision will be made, and the public will be informed of such. Okay, thank you. I want to take this opportunity to also wish everyone a prosperous and happy 2016. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Myers, for your opening remarks. I'd like to open the floor back for questions that the media might have. Alida, you can continue with your line of questioning.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome, Minister Myers. Mr. Myers, on the zoning plan, can you say when those zoning plans will be before Parliament? We have had several meetings on the preparatory work, etc., but can you say now when that zoning plan will be before Parliament?
Well, we have went through the review, the public review as stipulated by law. 3 zoning plans, basically the Simpson Bay area, the cul-de-sac district, and the Little Bay district. After they have been put on public review, some comments was submitted. There is a committee of experts to review those comments. And with the advice of the committee of experts, it will be presented to Parliament. Right now, I have instructed the ministry to proceed with the other is 8 districts in total. We did 3, the other 5 districts, and they are in the planning for sometime the end of January. But as soon as we have the advice for the 3 previous draft zoning plans, it will be presented to Parliament for discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alida. Hilbert?
2 questions. Minister Lee, you mentioned the budget 2015, 56.7 million. What's the budget for 2016 for you?
That's in discussions, but it is less. I mean, there are cuts across the board. I don't have the figures with me exactly, but it is a couple million guilders less, yes.
A couple of million, but
Yeah.
not dramatically.
You know, bearing in mind that the ministry is a very social ministry, and the ministry really touches a lot of people, a couple million guilders is a lot of money, in my opinion. But you know what? I think, you know, I fully support the direction that we're going with the Minister of Finance. The idea of being fiscally responsible, bringing the budget in line, but also going after other revenues. I mean, that's an important part. I'll give you, you know, just one example. For example, when you look at the ambulance services, the budget that was prepared was based on previous collections for ambulance services, I think 30-something thousand guilders. But based on the number of trips and based on the number of tariffs, they should actually be collecting somewhere in the 450,000 guilder range. But because of the difficulties in actually how they collect the money, that the receiver's office has to collect the money, and often it's too late in terms of collecting the money, much of that revenue is lost.